Tim Burton has also made some money off the Used being the Used. And
Yeah.
the symbiotic relationship of Hot Topic, Jack Skellington, and the Used. We are reviewing all of the records that will be played at the 2024 When We Were Young Music Festival. All the emo bands that we grew up with in our childhood and our teenagerhood and our adulthood.
It's called adolescenthood.
It's adulthood for me. So we're going through all the records, 56 records in less than that weeks until the festival. We're going through records we know. We're going through records we've never heard before. We're going through records that maybe one of us loves and the other one has never even thought about. This one, we're talking about a record that we both know and love. In Love and Death by The Used. This is this was a massive record for me in my adolescence.
Don't worry. See, it's
so we're gonna go through. We're gonna give our thoughts on it. We're gonna talk about the record and let you know whether or not you should check them out at When We Were Young Festival when you're there.
This is the second album from The Used to start off with. It was released September 28, 2004. That's so crazy.
Yep.
And it was produced by John Feldman of Goldfinger and has worked on many other The Used albums and just a bunch of other bands' albums as well.
He did their first one, so this was the second outing with The Used, and he's done a lot of a lot of music. Mm-hmm. We'll get into it.
Yeah, Brian has feelings and emotions.
We'll get into it.
The singles that were off of this album were All That I've Got, Take It Away, and I Caught Fire. They charted 6 on the Billboard 200 when it came out.
Damn.
Which is pretty solid.
6.
And actually, Under Pressure, their collab with My Chemical Romance with Gerard Way, it's their only song to hit the Hot 100s chart.
Wow.
Which is wild.
This is the cover of Queen.
Yeah. Which is wild because I would never think that song would be the one for them, especially now with their most recent release. They've been played, their newer stuff has been played a lot more on like Octane and even on like Q101, which is our local alt-rock radio station here in Chicago. So I'm even shocked that some of those haven't even broke a little bit further. Billboard actually said in a review about this album that it continues to straddle the line between street credibility and mainstream success. And I very firmly feel that The Used is still in that area. And like, that's not a bad thing either, because I know out there, a lot of people were like, I don't want anybody in the mainstream, like the normies, to like touch this band that I really love. But there's enough people out there because they're on the radio that they're just like, yeah, like I know these singles that I hear every so often, and that's fine. Yeah. But nobody's like overzealous about it. Like when you have Bad Omens go viral and then it's just like a terrible time for everybody.
True. The Used is not trying to be Bad Omens. But they did. I think that The Used created the realm in which a lot of these bands that did go mainstream, they sort of tread that path before a lot of the bands did. A band like My Chem would not have made it as far as they did without The Used kind of opening some doors and treading some paths before them. The Used was one of the bands that got me into this style of music off their first one. So I was obviously very excited about In Love and Death coming out, having a second record. I'll go on record, as I have many times, and said John Feldman production and the way that he makes records sound, I don't always love. Now, this was early in that time period, early in the years of John Feldman producing records like this and creating this sound for bands. And I do feel like, in a way, working with The Used on their first record and then working on this record with The Used sort of found John Feldman's sound and how he was going to create future rock records, which there are a couple other ones that we're going to talk about in the When We Were Young lineup too, that I will have these similar feelings about. But I do think that this is where John Feldman started, and therefore it is still a reserved. The amount of orchestration on it is not so much. There's still good songwriting. There's not a lot of tricks on this record. John Feldman loves some tricks, some editing and some production tricks. There's a lot less of that. The Used is a very talented group of songwriters and performers. And so I really like that we didn't lose that on this particular record. This is, I would say, one of the records I'm looking the most forward to seeing. Now, they've done this record on tour before. They have performed this as a 2-night event of their first 2 records. So this will not be the first time they've performed this entire record in a row as well. But I didn't go to that show, so I get to see it this time.
I was at that show.
Yeah, I didn't go.
Wow.
So, but to be fair, I was at the Taste of Chaos where they performed Under Pressure live. And so whatever, I got that. And they played most of the songs off this record. So I've seen the majority of this record played live. I absolutely love this record. So most of this album, I'm like top tracks, all of them.
All of them.
But I'll pick a couple that like have really meant something to me since I heard it. Number 1, I Caught Fire, the single I Caught Fire. I have always loved this song. I think that it was one of the first songs where I heard a really cool, like tappy guitar riff that wasn't AFI. I'll put it like AFI was the only one doing that. And I heard another band doing that. And I'm like, holy shit. Like here is that like tappy guitar riff. We're coming in and it's a melodic song. You got a really cool chorus. Like it came to me at the right time that I was like, this is where the Used are growing into. This is like the Used. And now we're like they are stars. They are like really good songwriters. This is a great way to kick off the record. Number 2 is Cut Up Angels. It's one of the ones where you're like, I'm singing along and you could tell
it that like the story's coming out and you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Like what's going on here?
It was, I don't know, just from the moment I heard it, I was like, this song is the rhythm to it and the vibe to it just always hit me right. I believe they don't really play this one as much, so I'm excited
They don't.
Yeah.
No, this is also one of my faves too.
Okay, yeah. My third one, which I think we're gonna agree on this, I'm a Fake.
That's
one of that song is so hard. It's so good. The spoken intro to it. I know it's like a little bit cringy and it's a little bit like, why are we talking about this?
It doesn't matter. Don't worry.
Like if you can get over that and you can just be like in that mood and that mindset, it just like be like, yo, fuck it. Like I'm going. I think this song goes hard every single time you hear it. And being the closer of the record, I think it's just I think it's going to go off so hard again every single time.
I think I'm going to try to crowd kill Brian, actually.
No, I'm not going to be near you at all. I love this record. I think most of it is strong. I think even songs like Lunacy Fringe, which is a very weird track on it, but obviously is a song that a lot of people have tried to copy. A lot of albums have a song like Lunacy Fringe on it. Like, let's do something a little bit like orchestral and different and creepy and weird. And it's like, yeah, it still works for me here. Other bands have not been able to do something like that as well as the Used did. The only song that I'm like, okay, I can maybe do without this is Hard to Say.
Yeah,
I think that
same.
song doesn't really do anything. I don't. The lyrics are fine on that. I'll say the lyrics are okay, but I just don't. This is one of those songs where I'm like, John Feldman got a little too John Feldman on that, and he started making a song out of the sounds and the production instead of the song itself being a really strong song. I just don't think that song is as good. I'm not, I can stand there for 3.5 to 4 minutes and listen to it and get to the next one because there's so many bangers on this record. And obviously I think you're going to pick like some of the other ones that I did not mention that are fucking the hard hitting, the heavy, the bangers. The only other one I'll say I'm like, is Listening. That to me is a very
like Listening.
It's a very juvenile song, like, but not in a way where like it's an ignorant heavy song, but it's not ignorant enough. It's still very like, I'm a kid and I'm not listening to you. And I cannot get over that every time I hear it. I think depending on your age, like when I first heard that, because I was a junior in high school when this came out. So I was already kind of getting past that. Like
you're like, I'm getting ready to like apply to colleges and have like a normal one. But
now. You're singing a song where it's like, Mom told me to do my chores and I don't wanna. Like that's the song to me. But it still hits. Like it
fucks. I mean, if I hear it live, I'm getting in that pit. Like that's it.
Yeah, it rips. So I don't have as strongly negative feelings about that one. It's a little bit of that song where it's like, Mom said I can't have chicken nuggets for dinner tonight, and I'm not listening to her. I'm doing I'm gonna be in my room and I'm gonna.
Oh my god.
Mom, close the door. I'm listening to my music. I'm not listening.
I got into this album as well when I was in that 13, 14 range. But I got into it because as every young girl does, when she starts to date someone, you're like, we're going to pick a song. And we both love the Used. So we picked I Caught Fire. And then we switched it to Snow Patrol. which I don't listen to them, so it's fucking fine. It's the Chasing Cars one. It's fine. I don't need to listen to them really ever. But I got into the Used because of my ex at the time. I was like, oh, wow, this is like, they're really, really fucking good. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like for this album, it came at a time where like it made sense for me personally. And I feel that I go back to it not as often as a full album anymore. I go back to it for like my top tracks that I like to listen to from it. But I do feel like that it was very much, at least for me and my friends when we were in high school listening to it, like this was like we're growing up, relationships suck, people suck record. Like this is what me and all my homies listened to.
Yeah.
All the time, because that was just like our energy. So and seeing it live was fantastic, like fucking phenomenal. And they're just really good performers. And that's why every time they're in town, because they rarely come to Chicago anymore, it's like I have to fucking be there.
Yep.
Like front and center. But with that, when I'm also front and center for it, is sound effects and over dramatics.
It's so hard.
It's so fucking hard.
It's so much. It's crazy.
I love that fucking song. It's fantastic. My other ones are ones that Brian also had too. I'm a Fake, which is probably the second The Used song I ever heard.
Yeah.
And I just latched onto that shit. It's so hard. You know what? Sometimes being a teenager is rough. Okay, I latched onto that shit so hard. That was like probably one of my most listened to songs. And Cut Up Angels, because I think it's just so different with the way that it's structured. And I like that they get a little bit more, not like concept, but there's like a story to it a little bit when you listen to it. And it's a little bit morbid, but that's what like I like that. I think that's fun.
Morbid.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I think it's fun. It's different.
Movie, so it's
fun. It's different. It's edgy. It's cool. What wasn't edgy and cool though for me was hard to say. It was just kind of there. Yeah. It was slower. Also, a lot of you will come to find in this series, I don't like a lot of slow songs.
Yeah,
that's just how I am. Now, because of my bad experiences and because it is played so often now, I get kind of annoyed by it. Is I Caught Fire.
Nah.
I find myself coming back to it in moments where I'm like nostalgic or I'm in that similar like vibe that I was when I was younger, when I first had that with, you know, being in a relationship or something like that, where I'm like, yeah, like this makes sense. But I rarely come back to it because I also feel it's so overplayed now with a lot of people that it's not hitting the same as I wish that it did when I was like 14. I think that it's a great one, but it's too much, like too overplayed for me right now. Not to be like, I listen to this for you, but kind of like that. And then my controversial take for Brian is Lunacy Fringe. It just doesn't hit for me. And I get it. Like, you know, you get it and I get it. I'm like, I want to like this, but I can't like it as much.
Yeah. So that was our thoughts on this record. But we wanted to get some other people's thoughts. So I went on Amazon.com.
Oh, shit.
And I looked up what some people have said and reviewed as for this record. This review is from Anonymous Andy. I don't know him.
Damn. I mean, I don't think anybody does.
Yeah, he's anonymous. 5-star review. The title is New Sound, but still the same great band. This was written on November 14th of 2004. When the Used released their debut in 2002, they won me and many other people over quickly with their own quirky blend of pop and hardcore, and helped usher in, whether you like it or not, the current screamo trend. However, the Used have enough originality and talent at their disposal to avoid being painted into a corner, so when their second album, In Love and Death, comes around, it's no surprise that it sounds little like their debut. The band has matured in plenty of ways. For starters, the songwriting has shifted a bit. On the first album, they were a band full of young kids who were starving to taste some success. On this release, we have more of a loose concept album full of songs dealing with the subject of both love and death. The album as a whole is perfect. It definitely lives up to the standard set by the debut. I was a bit skeptical at first, and it took me a few listens to fully warm up, but it pays off. Give this album its fair chance. The Used are easily the best in their game, and we can only imagine what tricks they will pull out for us on their third album. This is a review by a man named Tyler. Crap. Whiny emo music, crap teenage angst, not my type of music. This is weak music for over-emotional little dudes.
Little dudes!
That was a 2-star review by a man named Tyler. Yeah, that was written in the last 2 years. So
oh, really?
that guy felt differently. This is another review by Crixum. It's a 5-star review. This was from October 18th, 2010. The review is titled, Nice. Ever since I started looking up and listening to The Used, I've loved most of their music. This CD is no exception. They are one of my more favored bands. This music to me is enjoyable leisure music, and that's what I do. I enjoy this music in my leisure. Nice.
What kind of leisuring is he doing?
I'm saying that like this is not a leisure album.
It's not. That's why I'm wondering, like, front to back. This is not
you hear "Take It Away" and you're already like not leisuring.
You're like, I'm ready to fucking go. I'm about to like break out. Like that's.
Yeah,
I'm worried about this person's sanity.
Crixum, I hope you're well.
To go with the Amazon reviews, I found some critic reviews. This is one from The Guardian by Dave Simpson. Give it a 3 out of 5. We're gonna see not a lot of high critic reviews about this album. Used frontman Burt McCracken endured a public split from Kelly Osbourne. This is also from this is very dated. A public split from Kelly Osbourne, which has clearly caused him much distress. The 1 minute he's screaming, "I'm a mess without you." The next unleashing the mother of all post-split put-downs. "While we were making love, I was asleep." He can console himself with the fact that cameo appearances on the Osbourne TV show have helped push his band into the US top 10.
That's
a lie.
Well, okay. MTV definitely really helped, being that they were being picked up a bit more by MTV at that time. Definitely did help. It probably didn't hurt that he was on the Osbournes and had a couple episodes where he was on there. It didn't hurt, but if the songs sucked, if the records sucked, it wouldn't have gone as high as it did. And if it didn't have the good songs that it did, no, I wouldn't do anything. So
another review comes from punknews.org. They gave it a 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
The Used continue with the predictable screamo cliche on their latest offering. While their self-titled debut showed a sense of urgency and unpredictability that was missing from the genre, this release captures everything safe about this somewhat new style rock music. I can't think of a name to call it. When the Used decide to kick up the energy a notch, they find mixed results. Sound effects and overdramatics brings an intense charging force to the record that was lacking from tracks 2 to 8. However, I'm a Fake contains the most trite, boring, cliche spoken word intro that encompasses everything about the emo genre, cutting, bleeding, fucking, etc. that we're all sick of.
This is a spoken word intro to a song that I'm like, yes, absolutely. And when Pete Wentz did that thing at the end of Cork Tree, okay, why?
Let him cook. Let him cook.
Bert did it so much better than Pete has ever done it.
The band still has potential, and a smart move would have been to place more fleshed out, interesting tracks along with the radio-friendly tracks that would both guarantee some airplay along with some artistic credibility. Unfortunately, the band was too afraid to stray from the formula that has been done to death over the last few years. During that time, I can definitely see what they mean.
The Used were on a level that a lot of bands that had done what they were doing were not on. They were on MTV. They were on...
Or they were even like the older original emo where they did have that screamo aspect, but they're not at that... They were not at that caliber or in that even new genre area.
The reason we like the Used is because they wrote better songs. Because they wrote catchy songs. And... that's why we ended up loving the Used versus a lot of these other bands. So like in their own way, they were pioneering what the new sound of like, call it mall emo, call it mall goth, call it whatever. But like that Hot Topic sound that ended up becoming a thing is like, it's because of the Used creating it. So the idea that they're like not going the safe way, it's like, well, clearly in the time since then, you know, Tim Burton has also made some money off the Used being the Used. And the symbiotic relationship of Hot Topic, Jack Skellington, and the Used. The question that we have to answer, though, is this worth seeing at When We Were Young Fest 2024 in Love and Death in full? And I think we both, we love this record.
I always have to fucking see them no matter what. Like, I gotta go. I gotta be there.
We love this record. The Used still kills it. The Used is still so on their game right now, performance-wise.
Like, honestly, it's a fantastic show every single time. They bring the same energy. They're telling you to like fucking kill each other in the pit. Like, that's what you want.
I do think it's going to be worth watching the whole album play from beginning to end. There's so many good tracks on this. You'll be going from singing along to moshing to dancing to jumping to throwing your hands up and saying, yeah.
I'm going to push Brian in the pit.
I'm literally not standing next to you for any of these. You're going to get so excited. You're going to be the person who's like, oh my God, when they play the next song on the record. It's like, we know the set list. So that's what we think. That's our thoughts on the record. That's our thoughts on the Used. When We Were Young Fest 2024, we'll be there. We'll be in the pit. What do you think? Did you like this record? Is this one of your least favorite? Are you skipping them at the fest?
That'd be silly.
Yeah.
That'd be silly goose mood.
Let us know if we're wrong. Let us know if we're right. Obviously, we're going to be reviewing every record that's being played at When We Were Young Fest. So make sure to subscribe. Make sure to drop a like and a follow so that you know when the next videos go live. The Used, In Love and Death, When We Were Young 2024. And we'll see you there.